VikesNow, I am Dustin Baker, and we are here. I am here with trade ideas for these Vikings. The team is expected to win 8.5 games this year, which is kind of refreshing because during the Kirk Cousins era and last year, it usually starts off at 6.5 for an over/under win total, and it graduates to 7.5. We're doing big things at 8.5 this go around. So the Vikings traded for Sam Howell during the draft. They swapped 30 picks worth of draft capital to get their backup quarterback for 2025. And we wonder if there will be any more trades hereafter. So what I want to do with you guys and gals is discuss trades that would make sense for the Vikings and the other team. I'm not just saying, hey, we should trade for CeeDee Lamb. I'm not doing weird shit like that. I'm doing realistic stuff. And I've ranked these trades in alphabetical order by the target's last name. So I'm going to start. Most of these dudes, actually, there's a little bit of a scattering of positions, but let's start with DaRon Bland of the Dallas Cowboys. He is a decent starting cornerback. He was an All-Pro in 2023. He was the guy that couldn't stop intercepting passes 2 seasons ago. And it was like, man, damn, this dude is a playmaker. Well, he is a product of the 2022 NFL Draft, and the Cowboys have not extended DaRon Bland yet. And the only reason I call him out as a possible target, well, there's 2 reasons. First, the Cowboys pay Dak Prescott mucho dinero. I think it's the most in the NFL, isn't it? CeeDee Lamb has a Justin Jeffersonian contract, huge. We think they have to pay Micah Parsons. Something's got to give with these dudes they can keep paying. And DaRon Bland feels like one who could be jettisoned. So there is that salary cap angle about how many guys can get decent contracts on that Dallas roster. Plus, the Cowboys drafted Siobhan Revell in round 3, the guy that some Vikings fans, including this guy a little bit until I learned that he's going to be 24, Siobhan Revell, if he recovers from his ACL in time for the 2025 season, he should be a day 1 starter. That's what he profiles as leading up to the draft. So the Cowboys drafted a sweet, possibly round 1 talent in Siobhan Revell, and they have not yet played DaRon Bland. I think the Vikings could get Bland for the equivalent of a 4th-round pick. And then, boom, you could start him next to Byron Murphy Jr., and you don't have to worry about any camp battles between Isaiah Rodgers or Mekhi Blackman. Now, when I say the equivalent of a 4th-round pick, it seems that no NFL trade anymore is, hey, we'll give you DaRon Bland for a 4th-rounder. It's usually like the Cowboys get a 3rd-rounder, and then the Vikings get a 4th-rounder, or they get Bland in a 5th-rounder. It's one of those, they balance out the trade calculator, kind of like you do in fantasy football. So the first one at the top of the list alphabetically is DaRon Bland, a cornerback from the Dallas Cowboys. Number 2, this one may be the least likely because the Vikings have already traded for a running back this offseason, but I have Travis Etienne on this list. The methodology to get him on the trade wire is the exact same as DaRon Bland. So the Jaguars, they got new management. On their storefront, it says under new management. And they've already got rid of a couple guys. Gabe Davis, he's gone. They wrapped their arms around Travis Hunter and Brian Thomas, good for them. And Gabe Davis, who is a very good WR3, no longer works for the Jaguars. If they're willing to get rid of Gabe Davis and sculpt this team in the fashion, their own, the new general manager and Liam Cohen, the new head coach, Travis Etienne is probably expendable. They also drafted the Tootin guy from Virginia Tech. Tank Bigsby got a lot of carries last year, and then they also added like 2 or 3 undrafted running backs. They have running backs galore in Jacksonville. So Travis Etienne also, he's a 2021 draft guy, and he is the type of player that is probably not going to stick around, and I think he can get got for the equivalent of a 5th-rounder because running backs aren't quite as premium as cornerbacks. So because the Jaguars have a suddenly crowded running back room, Bigsby's getting more carries, the Tootin guy from Virginia Tech, Etienne could be on the block. And with the Vikings, all of a sudden, you would have kind of 3 pieces that are somewhat, I don't know if I'd say equivalent, but they're, in terms of how you'd feel about them projecting this season and beyond, Aaron Jones, Travis Etienne, and Jordan Mason. That can work. In fact, one of those guys is going to be too good to be an RB3. But I think Etienne can be got for a 5th rounder, and if the Vikings believe in his skill set, Etienne was supposed to be did you play fantasy football? The guy was supposed to be a baller, and he's slightly underachieved in Jacksonville. And it just makes a lot of sense that they would trade him with their new head coach and general manager. Number 3 is Zion McCollum, a cornerback from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He had a PFF grade near 70 last year, and it was, I think, his first season playing the entire allotment of starter snaps. I think he played like 1,100 defensive snaps. So he's got the PFF beef there, getting up in the high 60s, up near 70s. And this is similar to the Cowboys drafting Siobhan Revell. The Buccaneers, they already have Jamel Dean, but they also drafted Benjamin Morrison in round 2 before Revell Jr. And Benjamin Morrison has the same MO. If he recovers from his hip injury, usually those are a little sus. If he is ready to go, Zion McCollum, a alumnus of the 2022 NFL Draft, that could be a guy where they say, you know what, we're not going to pay you, Zion, and they could trade him. And I think, just like Bland, McCollum could be received to the Vikings for a 4th rounder or whatever hodgepodge of, sweeteners they put on the trade. I think in the end it'd be close to a 4th rounder. And like Bland, once again, you'd have Byron Murphy and Zion McCollum as the primary starters, and then the battle behind the other two between Jeff Okudah, Mekhi Blackman, Isaiah Rodgers, and maybe Dwight McGlothern. That wouldn't feel quite as anxietal. Like, I think right now, cornerback is the only position on the Vikings roster where you could make a case that it's not set or stacked. And that's probably why I'll end up having 3 corners on this list. So give me a Deron Bland from the Dallas Cowboys for a 4th rounder, or Zion McCollum, who is right in the prime of his career. I think he's only 26, maybe just turned 26. He could do the trick. Next one is probably my favorite. And if you saw him on the headline of the YouTube show, on the billboard, if you will, Kyle Pitts. He is also due for a contract extension. I fully understand that the Minnesota Vikings employ TJ Hawkinson for megabucks, and then Josh Oliver, who is a pretty sweet blocking tight end and a TE2. After that, they have a bunch of lottery tickets. Gavin Bartholomew from Pittsburgh, Ben Urosek from Georgia, and Bryson Nesbitt, I can't remember where he's from, Penn State. I can't remember where he came from. But you have 2 tight ends that we know can make an active roster. Fine, we don't have an urgent need at tight end. But suppose for a moment Kyle Pitts is available on the trade block. Atlanta has already made the decision that they're not going to pay him. TJ Hawkinson's contract, or his guaranteed money, there's no more after the 2025 season. And even if you're going to keep Hawkinson, he probably will want a new contract in the next 2 off seasons. You could showcase Hawkinson and Kyle Pitts in the same offense. Josh Oliver has not been extended, and his contract expires in 2025 this season. So if you are familiar at all with Kyle Pitts, every year there are fans of the NFL in general, and especially Falcons fans, that forecast this is the year where he's going to finally break out and be the top 10 pick. What was he, 7th or 8th for the Falcons a few years ago? And then it never really happens. His first year, he was pretty darn good, and thereafter it's been mid. If you are one of those folks that still thinks there is grand hope for Kyle Pitts, why not bring him into an offense that is led by a quarterback whisperer, we think a top 5 play caller in the NFL, and then try something fascinating where you let Hawkinson and Pitts cook on Sundays, in addition to Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson, Aaron Jones, J.J. McCarthy throwing the ball, Ty Felton. I think it would be sweet. And Pitts, because his stock is so low and he is going to be up for an extension, he can be obtained for a 4th or a 5th round pick, and I bet you it's closer to a 5th. Right now, the thing Pitts has going for him is his name and his draft stock. The production doesn't match that. But if you could find a team that has an offensive genius like the 49ers, Chiefs, hopefully the Vikings, if you put them in that category, why not get Pitts for the long haul? Because Josh Oliver's contract is going to expire soon. TJ Hawkinson's guaranteed money runs out. Why not get Pitts in the house and showcase 2 really fantastic tight ends per skill set and upside? Finally, this one, I offered this as a bold prediction in a Vikings territory article this morning. Every year we ask Vikings territory writers for a bold prediction about the summer. And here's mine. It regards Tyreek Woolen or Reek Woolen from the Seattle Seahawks, that one corner who's 6'4" and 210 pounds. Like every other dude on this list, his contract is going to expire this season, 2025. And here's my bold take, and then I'll explain the trade. Shaq Griffin, who played cornerback for the Vikings last year, he was drafted by the Seahawks 8 years ago, and he has met with the Seahawks, and then there was some rumor mill reporting stuff that said he could sign with the Seahawks here soon. Why do the Seahawks need a cornerback? They have Reek Woolen, Devin Witherspoon, who's fantastic, and then Josh Jobe. He's kind of that upstart guy. They have 3 cornerbacks who are already good. My bold prediction is the Seahawks sign Shaq Griffin. He's going to be 30 this summer. And then trade Reek Woolen because he's up for a contract extension. Remember, last year in December, Reek Woolen got benched for the first quarter of a game, and they asked him about it afterward, and he was pissed. So I don't know if everything is totally harmonious with Woolen in Seattle. And because Brian Flores almost always has one large cornerback somewhere on his roster, it was that, what was that dude's name? Oh, who's the guy from the Patriots, the cornerback, like the second rounder? Jaquan Jones, was it? No, I can't remember exactly. There was a cornerback from the Patriots who signed with the Vikings and then later signed with the Bears after we cut him in 2023. He was a big cornerback. I think there is a persistent fascination with at least one big cornerback for the Vikings. And Tyreek Woolen, they don't get any bigger at cornerback than him. 6'4", muscular, 210, and he's actually pretty darn good, too. So I think the Vikings could ship that 4th rounder to Seattle, whether that is like a conditional 5th and it morphs into a 4th, kind of like the Cam Robinson trade, or a 2027, because the 4th rounder for next year is probably spoken for after that Cam Robinson trade. So Brian Flores getting a large cornerback, and just like the other corners on this list, CB1 and CB2 would be Byron Murphy Jr. and Reek Woolen in 2025. I think most would endorse that. So to recap, Deron Bland from the Cowboys can probably be attained for a 4th rounder. Travis Etienne, if you want to get ultra rich, leave nothing to chance at running back, probably a 5th rounder. Zion McCollum from the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers just drafted Benjamin Morrison. Do they really need McCollum, or will they pay him? Send a 4th rounder there for him. Kyle Pitts, my favorite one on the list. Daydreaming about Hawkinson and Kyle Pitts in the same offense in addition to Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison with J.J. McCarthy. Yes, sir. We'll take it. And then Reek Woolen from Seattle. If they sign Shaq Griffin, they really won't need to pay Woolen for the long haul. That's all I got. We'll be back on Tuesday afternoon. Josh Fry is going to make his return, and we'll speak with Nate Porter, who contributes every now and then at Vikings territory. Skol, baby.